Joining me today on NYSE Floor Talk is Dilip Rao. He is the founder and CEO at Sharebite. Dilip, it is wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So now let's start off by talking about the company. Tell me about Sharebite, and then tell me, how did the idea originate, and how has it evolved since you founded the company?
Sharebite is a mission-driven employee meal benefits platform, and it's built exclusively for companies. And the insight that we had about 10 years ago was that the hidden epidemic in the country is that people go hungry, but it just doesn't pay to share that, hey, I'm hungry, or I don't have enough, or I can't make ends meet. And that has received a lot of attention recently, right? And so but that was 10 years ago, right? And one of the things that I learned was that when I started my career, I had bills to pay, I had loans, all these things. And the only way that I was able to make ends meet, at least for the first year and a half to 2 years, was that when I stayed late at the office, I worked in investment banking, and you got a $20 meal allowance on your company corporate account, and you would order the meal, I would order the meal, eat half of it for dinner, and then save the other half for lunch the next day. I wasn't alone in doing that. A lot of my colleagues did the same thing. But now, about a year ago, I became more comfortable sharing that more personal story, and I realized that that's not like, I wasn't alone in that, right? I had some of the most successful people that I know, that I'm friends with, started messaging me saying, hey, that really hit home because I went through the same thing. I had no idea. They had no idea. And so if some of the most successful people that I know were called going through this stuff and experienced food insecurity early on in their careers, what about the average worker in America, right? And so food insecurity is everybody's problem. It's not just one person's problem, right? It's the loss of hope. It contributes to loss of hope in everything, right? So Sharebite, as a purpose-driven and mission-driven company, our vision was to get every worker in America fed, and we wanted to power that. And what's really driving the company's growth today is that we're in this non-zero interest rate environment where company executives are focused on maximum return on invested capital, and they're trying to sort of improve employee engagement or sort of battle employee disengagement, especially in the post-pandemic world. And number three, they're looking for maximum utilization of benefits. Now, when we hear from our clients who are CHROs, heads of total rewards, COOs of companies, having a 7% utilization rate on any given benefit is a cause for celebration among HR companies. And that's mind-boggling to me, right? Because Sharebite, a meal stipend, a meal benefit, has a 93% utilization rate. It literally blows anything else that companies offer out of the water. And so when it comes to the reiteration of company values, maximum utilization, employee satisfaction, there is not another benefit that ranks higher than an employee meal stipend. You would argue health insurance, but if you skew closer to, if you're 25, 26 years old, you're probably not using your health insurance that much, right? That's just the way the world works. But you want your employees to feel and utilize the benefit every single day. And that's the thing about meal benefits, that's the thing about food. It gets used every single day. So that's truly driving a lot of our growth, whether it's return to the office, right? A lot of companies have brought people back to the office, and so food has become a mechanism to say, look, you're gonna go do your hour commute every single day, we'll at least feed you, right? Come back to the office, we'll feed you. And then there are companies that have committed to being permanently remote, and that works really well for them. They've implemented meal benefits for the same reasons that I talked about, right? 93% utilization rate, and it doesn't cost that much more than what any other benefit, a large, benefit would. So that's been driving our growth, and yeah, it's very, very exciting to be where we are today.
So now, food insecurity, it has received national attention recently.
Yeah.
But you do seem to have a different perspective on how to solve it. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, look, there are a lot of priorities for the country, right? And our elected officials are busy trying to figure out where do we sort of invest. My idea is not that novel, right? It's novel for the United States. In 40 countries across the globe, it's a standard practice to feed your workers. In Brazil, it's national law, right? If you have a full-time job, or if you have any kind of job, the government mandates what's called a meal voucher, right? In Europe, in nearly 40 countries across the globe, this is a standard practice. It's national law in others. We want to make that happen here, because ending food insecurity should not just be the public sector's problem, right? We all have a part to play in this. So the company's vision and mission is about helping align the incentives for the private sector to undertake the burden of public good. And so, yeah, I think this is a solvable problem, right? Especially in an environment where inflation is high, people are dipping into their personal savings, household credit card debt is exceeded $1 trillion, and 1 in 8 families feel the bite of food insecurity. 1 in 4 children going hungry. It's time that we got our elected officials to focus on one of the biggest, and most impactful things that we can do as a country to reintroduce hope back to the American population, and introducing meal benefits and legislating that could really have a force multiplying effect on the country.
And tell me, how did Sharebite do during the pandemic and post-pandemic? And would you say that the company's better off today than it was 4 years ago?
It's actually interesting, because today was 4 years ago was the first day of the lockdown.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, time flies.
It does.
When we, at the time, the company was doing really well, but at the time we were really focused on delivering and feeding workers in offices, right? So we saw that the sands had shifted, the world had changed, and it was not really going to come back, right? The longer the lockdown persisted, people are not going to return back to, or at least it was going to take time until they returned back to pre-pandemic levels. And so what we did was we invested all of our resources, we innovated and created this meal benefits platform that allows you to bring workers back to the office, right? So if you're in the office, you get fed. But there are a lot of companies that we have that are fully remote, or sometimes they're hybrid, and they have workers all over the globe now. And Sharebite is the technology that now powers all of that. So whether you're fully in the office, fully remote, or somewhere in between, Sharebite, through a technology, allows these companies to engage their employees and feed their workers and give them a benefit that they feel every single day.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, what's next for Sharebite?
Listen, the vision and the mission has always been to get every worker in America fed, and we're not stopping. So as I said to you earlier, we've got hundreds of companies that use Sharebite on an exclusive basis to feed their workers. And we want this to be spread across not 100, but 100,000 companies to do that. So last week was the best week we ever had in the company's history. Last Tuesday was our best day ever. And I think with all of the progress that we've made as a company, we're still just getting started. So we're very excited about the future. And lastly, what's good for Sharebite is truly good for every worker in America, and that's good for the country.
All right. Well, it's been wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk today.
Thanks for having me.